Hey guys, PIEGUYRULZ here, and lately I haven't been crazy about the new Steven Universe episodes. The new Crystal Gems, Rocknaldo, and Tiger Philanthropist all felt like episodes that were shallow and bordering on fan fiction. The new Crystal Gems had a premise that had a ton of potential, but instead wasted it with a side characters try to be the main character's story, where the conflict was just that they sucked at it and argued over who gets to be whom, which is really petty and uninteresting when they could have gone with something so much better, like just a simple monster fighting episode, but this time we get to see how Lapis, Peridot, and Connie work as a team. The episode feels kind of generic, and does it even really make that much sense that, like, Lapis would want to be one of the core members of the Crystal Gems? I mean, has she even really seen them in action as a core group, aside from the one time she fought against them? I don't know, it feels a bit forced, and just kind of an easy story without any real stakes. Then there's Rocknaldo, which is just ugh. I've campaigned in the past that Ronaldo is a lot more of an interesting character than a lot of people think, but yeah, this episode really made him just insufferable and awful. Before, when he did bad things, it was more because he had no clue what he was dealing with and was in his own little weird world, but this episode nailed down the point that, nah, he's just a self-centered moron, where even when he gets to be a part of the weirdness in Beach City, he just acts so unimpressed and bored with it all. He's just acting like an ungrateful brat. When did Ronaldo turn into Princess Morbucks? And the story itself is pretty lame as well. Ronaldo just pushes Steven's kindness until it snaps. It's not really dramatic or given any sort of importance, it's just kind of a story that adds nothing and is just going through the motions. The only takeaway is that I like Ronaldo a lot less now. And like with the new Crystal Gems, there is potential here for a story about Ronaldo wanting to be more involved with the Crystal Gems, but instead of going a really interesting route of him trying to study them or maybe explaining the story of how he learned about the Diamond Authority, we just get this really surface level base story where obviously Ronaldo's gonna be kicked out of the group by the end of the episode because he's acting too mean. I mean, they could have even played up how important it is that Steven needs to learn when to put his foot down, but the episode just kind of treats it like it's a cliche moral in an average cartoon instead of something that is like this big revelation for Steven. Lastly, let's talk Tiger Philanthropist. An episode that I can't say is bad, but it's just average. So painfully average. There's no singing, no deep emotional conflict, little comedy, and a story that's just not that interesting. And really, this was the episode that caused me to make this video because it made me realize something about the show. Steven Universe is an average show. Sometimes. Other times, it's brilliant, one of the best shows out there. But it's almost like it's actually two different shows. And no, I'm not talking about the gem episodes versus the human episodes, although that plays into it a little bit. That's not where I'm dividing the show this time, because there are great human episodes and lackluster gem episodes. No, I see the show as split between something that is beautiful art and something that is not bad per se, but more average. And I don't even mean average as in average quality, I mean more like plot lines and cliches that an average cartoon would follow, where there isn't really any deeper meaning to anything, and it's just surface level, typical kids show stuff. Take Tiger Philanthropist's story. I could easily see it being told in a We Bare Bears episode, or a SpongeBob episode, or really an episode of anything. The story is cookie cutter. Two characters are on a team, one character gets bored of it, the other character has to figure out how to carry on as a solo act, with of course the other character coming back in the end to help the first character out. It's not that this is a bad kind of story, it's just a pretty typical one, and it doesn't really have that much Steven Universe flair. Now, all of this sounds like I'm being way too harsh on the episode, but I'm actually not trying to be. In fact, this is the problem that I want to address with this video. Amazing Steven Universe is so dang good that average Steven Universe feels pathetic in comparison. But that's not really that fair, because by its own merits, the new Crystal Gems, Tiger Philanthropist, Kiki's Pizza Delivery Service, and other non-brilliant episodes are okay. They definitely have some good things about them, and at the very least, they aren't bad, yet at the same time, whenever I talk about them, I sound disappointed and kind of down on the episodes. I've had people get the impression that I hate episodes like this, when in fact, I'm more neutral to positive on a lot of them. Though, of course, there are episodes like Onion Gang and Rocknaldo that I do think are truly awful. By the way, this is not a new thing at all. Just because this is when I'm kind of realizing this does not mean that the show has suddenly gone downhill or I'm falling out of love with the show like I did with Adventure Time. It's more just me coming to a realization about the show and my own expectations and how I view it. There has always been average episodes like Secret Team, Arcade Mania, or Love Letters. It's just that the Steven Bomb format has kind of led to this pattern where a bunch of story-heavy and amazing episodes happen in the bombs, followed by a bunch of the average episodes with maybe one or two brilliant episodes like Mindful Education mixed in. As an audience member, I go into different shows with different expectations. I wouldn't expect a SpongeBob episode to be deep, or a We Bare Bears episode to be hilarious, or Teen Titans Go to have even a shred of quality. And it's easy to separate out these expectations with different shows. But what do you do with a show like Steven Universe, where you could get an episode about Steven being trapped in space with a ruby trying to shatter him one day, and then literally the next you get a Looney Tunes cartoon, which wasn't bad, but just not on the same level in any way. If every episode was of average quality and had stories and humor that was pretty typical of a cartoon, then that would be all I'd expect, and would be pleasantly surprised if it excelled beyond that. But as it stands, Steven Universe sets the bar so high with its interesting mythos, mysteries, rich characters, fun action, beautiful visuals, and overall top-notch storytelling that it's hard to look at an episode like The New Crystal Gems and not be disappointed, because there is such a quality dip between it and That Will Be All, which aired right before it. It's like sometimes Steven Universe is a quirky sitcom with wacky misunderstandings and sitcom cliches, but other times it's an intense science fiction drama. I certainly like both of those things, but in different ways, and when I'm hoping for one but then end up with the other in a case of a new episode, it can be a letdown. Steven Universe is a show that rewards you for paying attention by throwing in little bits of dialogue that show a character arc that's not entirely obvious, or explain some little bit of lore about the Crystal Gems that you really have to look back and compare it to other episodes and think about it to piece together. I mean, at one point, one of the people who worked on the show even claimed that there was no filler episode in Steven Universe and that everything is important. So, going into each episode expecting and looking for little continuity nods and secrets and deeper themes like that is natural and to be expected. But at the same time, it kind of punishes you for paying attention too much. Because if you're too distracted looking for lore or deeper themes or something like that in an episode like The New Crystal Gems, then ultimately you kind of miss the fun surface level story and bits of comedy that there is in the episode. And you just keep waiting for some big emotional twist that's just never gonna come, because it's just not that kind of episode. But unfortunately, not every episode can have Uncle Grandpa come in and tell us that it's explicitly not important, so there's not really a way to know until you watch it. It just leads to a very bad and disappointing viewing experience. At least for people like me who do really enjoy the more drama, science fiction, magical aspects of the show. And I do realize that that's not how everyone watches it. There are a lot of people who like the sillier episodes or the more human-based episodes, which is, of course, totally fine. But at any rate, I wanted to make it clear that when you see me on Twitter talking about how the latest episode isn't that good, don't automatically assume I think it's abysmal or even bad at all. It's just that it isn't amazing Steven Universe, and Twitter doesn't allow me to specify that within the character limit. Sure, I may not have loved The New Crystal Gems, but I didn't think it was awful. And also, don't hold me to anything with Twitter, since it's more of a raw reaction than something thought over and calculated like this video. So that's what I think. Steven Universe can sometimes be a hard show to assess and talk about because of how great it is at times, and then at other times it's okay, but not necessarily awful. It's kind of like if Avatar and Clarence had their episodes shuffled together or something. Anyway, what do you guys think? Am I onto something here? PIEGUYRULZ,